Welcome along to episode 740 of the Milk Bar. Jason Forrest here with you as ever. And coming up on the show this week, we find out about 1448 as it returns to Wolverhampton at the Arena Theatre. Codsall Dramatic Society let us know about their production of A Bunch of Amateurs, which is on the way very soon. Backstreet Theatre, Have I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change. We'll be hearing about that. Chris Commander let us know about the shows that he's part of, including one from SuttonArts Theatre. We'll be having a natter with Kevin Jon Davies, all about his book on the life of Douglas Adams. And Stafford Gatehouse let us know what they've got going on with their array of shows over the next few weeks. Plus, we'll be reminiscing about their noughties with Judge Jules. That's all on the way on the show this week.
Welcome to the Milk Bar. 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 Welcome to the Milk Bar.
Codsall Dramatic Society are in action with A Bunch of Amateurs. We'll explain more exactly what that means in a short while's time. But first of all, let's tell you when they're on. It is the 20th through to the 23rd of September, and they're going to have a great time in Codsall Village Hall, where we are now at one of their rehearsals. Hello, gang!
Yay!
They're as noisy as ever, which is the way we like it. Okay, so who's going to start telling us a bit about the show? Adam, you've just arrived, so let's throw you in at the deep end. Tell us a bit about A Bunch of Amateurs.
So it follows a group of theatrical players in Stratford.
Yeah.
Which Stratford is it?
Stratford
again?
St. John.
Stratford St. John. Yes. Who haven't had the best run of success in recent because no one turns out to their most recent performance, so they decide to get some American talent in the form of Jefferson Steele.
Okay, playing Jefferson Steele then, there's a full-on American accent?
That's right.
And you'd be doing an American accent on the night?
I sure will. I have to talk like, who is this guy?
But it makes it a challenge. I mean, I remember when you guys went to Australia for that was brilliant. And everyone kept their accents the whole way through. So we're looking forward to the challenge that you have ahead of you when everyone else isn't talking American.
Yes.
So
throw you a bit.
yes, it can be a bit confusing. Okay, let's meet another member of the cast. Who wants to volunteer next?
I'll go next then.
Okay.
I'm Dorothy, and I am the director of this difficult crew, and particularly the difficult Jefferson, who is a very obnoxious character, very arrogant, and thinks because he's had all this fame previously that we're all going to cow down to him.
So this is going to be it's a fun play on characters, isn't it?
It is. And
how do you work with the director of the show? Hi, Sam. For the fact that you get to be director in the show.
Sam is lovely. I look up to her to direct me.
So
That's a good answer.
yeah,
Good
Sam, what's it like directing a director?
Fabulous.
Yeah, that's all good. And what's your part in this?
Lauren,
Okay.
I take the part of a sponsor, along with my husband, who you never see. But
Maybe imaginary.
Absolutely. I'm also I'm a trained physiotherapist, and that does come in quite useful when poor old Jefferson injured his back. However, as the play evolves, not only is Lauren promoting and marketing the products, which is all part of the sponsorship, she gets embroiled in the play, and in fact she gets a part in the play that they're doing, so she becomes one of the gang, so to speak.
This begins to get really confusing because we've got a director directing a director, people taking parts in a play when they're in a play.
I think we should mention that the play is King Lear.
I've found a copy of King Lear over here. I've been looking around what's on stage. We've got a copy of King Lear.
King Lear, yes.
That makes more sense now. Okay, so who's next to tell us what's going on?
I'm Jackie, and I play Mary.
Jackie
and
sitting at the back.
Hello. So I am. I'm quite a sweet little soul, really. I've got
It's a typecast.
Yeah, obviously, and a bit dim, I would say.
So typecast.
Typecast, yeah, absolutely. But she's got a bit of a side to her as well. But she happens to be deeply in love with a certain Mr. Jefferson Steele.
Okay, so adoration is going to be the order of the day.
Yeah.
We're liking that. Okay, right, so we've got two more to do. Next.
Hi, I'm Kira, and I play Jessica Steele, the daughter of Jefferson.
Oh, and you get an accent as well?
I get an accent as well, yes. That slightly goes southern, as I'm trying not to. have been on holiday for 10 days, so this is my first rehearsal back with these guys and thoroughly trying to remember every line and every stage direction as I can. But
You've got two directors. You've got a director
Yeah.
and a director directed as part of the play.
Fine.
But yeah, I basically come over to England because my mum is on honeymoon and my dad constantly lets me down, and I kind of show him up a little bit. But as the play goes on, we kind of build that bond, and there actually is an emotional connection and father-daughter wonderful little moment towards the end of the play. And I end up being in the play as well because of my history and knowing King Lear so well.
Okay, so this is going to be intriguing. Okay, now, couldn't even bother me taking his hat off. Yay! What have you got for us?
I'm playing the antagonist.
Yep.
I'm, as always, not typecast at all. I'm the person who believes she should be playing King Lear instead of the Hollywood star.
Ah, so a bit of conflict.
Bit of conflict.
And probably trying to steal some lines.
Steal some lines, trying to undermine him and trying to make as much trouble for him as he can.
You're going to have fun, aren't you?
I always do.
Yeah. it's going to be an amazing show. I mean, if you've not been to see Codsall Dramatic Society do their thing, it is well worth seeing them do their thing. They are amazing. They are not a bunch of amateurs, even though the show is. And it's going to be an absolutely brilliant time to be had by all. Now, we haven't had much from the director, but she has the phone number for tickets. So you've got to shout. Come on, I think we should make a stand at the front and do the phone number. Come on, down here. Oh, right, what you got?
Okay, so the phone number is 01902 267 322.
And it's almost a song, which is, the show is not a musical, even though the phone number is. Also, you can look for Codsall Dramatic Society on Facebook, and the website is
CodsallDramaticSociety.co.uk.
there we go, Codsall Dramatic. If you can spell all of that, you're doing well. CodsallDramaticSociety.co.uk, and as we say, it's the 20th through to the 23rd. It is a what day does it start?
Wednesday.
And then it finishes on
Saturday.
And Saturday is the
23rd.
which is a matinee. We have to get 2:30 matinee, 7:30 the rest of the week, and well worth getting yourself down here. Well, break a leg, have a great time, get to have fun with the accents, try and catch your director out when directing by doing a different accent to the one you're supposed to have, just for a bit of fun. And it's going to be brilliant. Have a great time, and I look forward to seeing the show.
Thank you, Jason.
From the 14th through to the 16th of September, Backstreet Theatre Company have I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change, all taking place at the Premier Suite in Cannock. With me to tell me more, I have Laura, Becky, Holly, Jack and James. Hello!
Hello!
Right, we're going to start finding out who's doing what, because this show has been done with sometimes quite a small cast. Here you have an awful lot of people doing a great range of roles and telling a good, fun and interesting and traumatising tale at times. So, okay, where should we start? Laura, tell us a bit about who you are and what you're doing.
So I'm playing Emma, Ashley and Susan.
So this gets even more confusing with names. Because
I
thought
that bit was difficult. Lots more names, yeah.
And how do these characters come to life? What story are they telling?
So Susan, she's quite scared. She's at like a dating programme. Ashley, she's meeting a friend who've just had a baby. And Emma, no.
That was close enough. You'll know by the 14th.
I hope so.
That should be good. Okay, but lots of characters, lots of interactions, and a story of love across the board. That's what we're looking for here. And the way relationships come together, which often these days can be online or apps or sometimes even real life. So that's one to explore. Yeah. And it must be fun telling these people's tales.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay, Becky, who have you got? Do you know your characters' names?
Yeah, Julie, Mrs. Whitewood, woman, and Connie. So, I'm sorry.
And the character woman is one to get into.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, it's a bit of an awkward one where they're. It's a bit awkward in bed. Yeah, and they kind of find out how to make things a bit, liven things up a bit.
So you have some good fun with this. Do you bring in much of your own life into this, or?
No comment.
Okay, we won't go there then. Holly, who are you?
Oh, that's a big question. If I can remember, just checked myself. So Jane, woman 1, which is slightly different from woman. and Mary. Yes, that's the three.
And which of those is your favourite to play?
I think...
You love them all, don't you? You don't
equally love them. But no, I actually have a scene with James as the character Jane, and I really enjoy doing that one because it's a bit silly, and I think that's a lot of it's very funny. But that's what I'm enjoying the most at the minute.
Okay, Jack, tell us about who you are.
So I've got the roles of Stan, Dave, groom, husband, and my favourite character, Willie.
Okay,
which
so
I don't think it takes too much imagination to think what might be involved.
He's not getting involved with Woman One in there.
No, no, Willie is not involved with Woman One. Willie's part of a song, which I'm not going to give too many spoilers away. You'll have to come and see the show to see. But let's just say it might involve certain pictures that get sent the way of women.
Okay. You haven't been getting into character for this.
No method acting.
No method acting.
The whole cast have now changed their phone numbers.
Well, maybe, I don't know. just in case. Not I've sent anything, but they might have done just in case.
Okay, just to be on the safe side. Okay, James. We've already found out part of your secret, but what else do we need to know?
So I'm playing Man 1, Spokesman, Frank 1, and James, which is always handy to know.
Do you not find it confusing playing someone with your own name?
No, surprisingly not. I think what's kind of nice with this show is that there is so many characters, and it's been a bit of a challenge trying to make them all different, doing like different accents and how they sort of interact with other people. But obviously the other challenge is this is going to be like within the audience, so like it's an immersive experience, so which is quite unique for a lot of us. I mean, some of us do murder mystery, so they're sort of used to that, but for a lot of us, the sort of interacting with the audience, getting them involved and being around, it's been quite exciting actually. And just sort of remembering we're so used to performing on stage where everybody's in front of us all the time, but now we're 360. We've got to think about where everybody is and how to interact with everybody. So it's been good. I mean, I don't know who my favourite character is, to be honest, but I think the ones I like the most are the ones that are just so different from myself. That I find them a lot easier to get into as well. So
you get to be expressive, and take it a bit further away. So which of the characters do you identify with then? This is interesting.
It's quite. I suppose the Spokesman's quite interesting. He's sort of like a lawyer, but he's kind of quite nerdy, quite geeky, which I can kind of sort of get into the character with. But he's also a little bit flamboyant and sort of very confident, and he controls the room. And so that's a fun one to do.
And all of you, I think you're outside your comfort zone at least at one point during the show, aren't you?
Definitely.
Back to woman again, aren't we? It's one of it's a grown-up show, but one which anyone from around 16 plus can identify with quite easily.
Yeah. I mean, like use your common sense. I think is what kind of conversations do I want to have on the ride home?
The show pretty much explores dating from the very start of dating, from when you first meet somebody, all the way through to when you're old and grey and you're single and you're trying to date somebody at a funeral. So
it covers everything.
All angles. Tips for everybody, basically. So it's going to be good fun to do, and it's nice to see Backstreet doing the thing, and the sort of venue as well. Premier Suite's going to be a bit different, isn't it?
Yes, very, very different. So as we've said, it's an immersive experience, so we will get the chance to get the audience involved at moments during the show, hopefully. And as we've said, there's a lot of the cast that aren't used to that kind of performance space or that kind of venue, so it's going to be a challenge, but it's one we're all up for, I think.
How do we get hold of tickets?
Oh, well, you can either get them online through Posi Tickets, so it's POSI tickets.co.uk, you just search for the show and it'll come up there, or you can get them through us directly. We've got box office email, which is backstreettickets@gmail.com, or a phone number, which, if I can remember it, is 07761 624.
No. That close. That was the end bit. It's written just above your head. I can see it. It's 07761 224 624. Don't let Holly phone anybody, or go on a dating app, because she could be ringing anyone, to be fair, by the end of it. But you guys are going to have great fun. Break a leg, no other body parts, because obviously there's a certain character who could struggle, and there'll be pictures. But it's going to be a good fun show. But before we go do that, how many of you guys are then involved in the completely juxtaposed position of Panto come December?
It might just be me.
Okay.
It might just be me.
Are you playing Snow White?
Well, you'll have to come and find out.
The audition.
I did audition. I'm playing the role of Muddles this year in Snow White, so we're performing it at Norton Keynes Community Centre, funnily enough, the venue.
Where we are now,
Where we are now, yes. That is on the weekend of the, I want to say the 18th and 19th.
I was going to say 16th and 17th.
16th and 17th.
Because that's written down just over there.
Yeah, it is, but my eyes aren't going to read that from there. 16th and 17th here. It's on the Saturday and the Sunday, so we do 2 shows, one at 1 o'clock, one at 5:30. It'll be a lot of fun. Our annual panto is always a really good turnout.
Well, we'll try and get along and meet up with the cast before all that happens.
Yes, absolutely.
Meanwhile, though, do check out Backstreet Theatre. You can find them on Facebook. And any other socials? Probably dating apps at the moment. Yeah. Check them out there. But I Love You, You're Perfect Now Change is coming up on the 14th through to the 16th of September. And then, of course, as we mentioned, Snow White a little later in the year. Have a fantastic time. Look forward to seeing you all on stage soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Somebody who is busy with many a project is Christopher Commander. We like to catch up every once in a while and see what craziness is going on in his world. At the moment, he's preparing for a show with the SuttonArts Theatre and he's been hanging around the birthplace of Shakespeare. Hello, sir.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. Keeping busy. A grateful busy bee. But,
that's always good.
You know,
we like it when everyone who works in the arts has got lots to do.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if we appreciate it sometimes, but we can't complain for the work, can we?
Absolutely. No, have to make the most of these things. So tell us a bit about All My Sons, which is your SuttonArts Theatre show coming up early part of September.
So the first week of September we start on the 7th. So it's an Arthur Miller piece. It's sort of a grand epic of the American dream and the cracks that show in the American dream. Just after the war, it takes place in the yard of the Keller's household, and it's all about their family dynamics and people who come in and sort of stir the pot a little bit, and how that sort of evolves into a very sophisticated drama that keeps the audience on their toes a little bit, on the edge of their seats. There are moments that are quite shocking, and there are moments that are very heartfelt, and it has the scope of this big sort of odyssey by Miller.
Quite a big cast and across a wide age range as well.
Yeah, we have someone playing Bert, who's a small, lovely boy, and the Keller is the oldest person in the cast, and casting has been tough because this is the first show of the season, and obviously you're rehearsing throughout the summer, so it means that you've got to get people that you can trust that may be away for some of the rehearsal. But have the caliber to keep up with everyone, and everyone trusts each other enough to go, yeah, you're gone for a week, but when you come back, we'll slot you right in and it'll totally be fine. I am guilty of that myself. And so I'm glad that they trust me to have it all in hand and come back into the fold when I can. So
but that's director Faye Hatch's issue, trying to keep everybody sorted, isn't it, really?
Yes, indeed. And this is my third time working with Faye. And it's a pleasure as always, and we work well together. We come up with ideas sort of on the spot sometimes. Some things work. It's a fairly collaborative piece, so it's good because it's an ensemble show, so no one is a lead really in the show. You've got lead characters, but everyone has the same voice in the rehearsal process, and we try things and move around and blocking changes and whatever starts to feel natural, because it has to feel lived in, the whole house. It's a childhood home. The people who come in, without giving any spoilers, who come in throughout the play also know the house, they know the area. And the premise is all about Joe Keller, the father. He sold airplane parts during the war, and Chris, my part, was off in the war with his brother Larry, and Larry was missing in action, and there are parts of the family who are are holding on to the idea 3 years later that Larry will return. Larry had a fiancée called Annie, who also lived next door to them. They all grew up together. It's a classic sort of American dream, bright cars, all of that. And again, the cracks that show that everything isn't as porcelain. Well, everything is porcelain. It looks pretty on the outside, but is very fragile sometimes.
So that's the 7th through to the 15th of September. SuttonArtsTheatre.co.uk to get your tickets and full details online. And of course, you can give the box office a buzz on 0121 355 5355.
Nicely done.
I do my best. I know you've been down at the Shakespeare Birthplace rather a lot as well, and this has been very much the day job at the moment, hasn't it?
Yes, indeed. So this started last year. I came in and sort of started some performance in the yard and in a lovely garden. I shouldn't say it's a yard. It is a beautiful garden.
Shakespeare's
in the back of Shakespeare, John Shakespeare's house, Shakespeare's father's house, the house that Shakespeare and his siblings were born in. And it's just a privilege to be able to shout 400-year-old words at people's faces throughout the day. So yeah, you can find me. We have a company of 4 actors. I'm on with it's 2 actors in the garden every day, and we're there until the 3rd of September. So we're getting to the end of the summer now. I know we are there again in October for Halloween. We're probably going to be doing some new things. I'm sure we'll do some Macbeth thrown in there.
It's guaranteed, pretty much, isn't it?
Guaranteed. But yeah, it's a beautiful day. You can pop by and see us from 10:30 onwards until the end of the day. We do a rolling show that's basically an hour-long show throughout the entire day. And we do some Romeo and Juliet, some Midsummer, some Macbeth, some Much Ado About Nothing. And we've sort of curated this lovely show with duologues and monologues and all sorts of stuff. So even if you don't like Shakespeare, come by and hopefully we'll convince you.
I think if you bring it to life and it's in the acting, and then you understand the words, I think reading it may not be as easy as seeing it, because you get so much more from the gestures and the acting that goes with it.
Well, this is what I sort of fight against with a lot of people. A lot of people come to the birthplace and they go, I don't like Shakespeare. I didn't like it in school. And I have a conversation with them about, how did you learn it? Did you learn it in English Lit? And most of them say yes, and they didn't like it because it's the same. It's a script. It's not a book. It's not a novella. It's a script. So you're not going to get any stage directions. You're not going to get any descriptions of anything. And to understand Shakespeare, even if you don't understand the words, sometimes to see it performed, you're going to get the emotion and you're going to get the meaning through those words by performance. And I think it's the only way to understand Shakespeare at its core level is to see it performed.
And how you remember all these things when you're going to go into a script, which essentially in some places it genuinely doesn't have the same meaning or any meaning these days, but it's through the acting that brings it to life. So it is always awesome
Correct.
to see. So if people want to nip down and they can just pop along, and there you are in the
pop along.
garden.
I'm in the garden all day long. It'll be me and Liz, me and Bethany, James and Liz, James and Bethany. We swap over. And there's always 2 of us in the garden at one point, so you'll see us. And if you come on the last weekend, the 3rd, the 2nd, and the 3rd, I'm there all weekend, so you get to see me.
There you go, pretty much guaranteed. Not far off now either, is it? Just over a week
No,
away.
it's getting close.
Yeah, the end of the summer season for Shakespeare's Birthplace. Obviously, you've got to pay your money into the Shakespeare's Birthplace to start off with as well.
Yes, yeah.
But that's
you
great
can,
value.
It's great value if you I'll give you a hint. If you get the storyteller pack, there's a storyteller ticket. That's 25 quid instead of £20 for one thing. And with the 25, you get to go to New Place, you get to Anne Hathaway's cottage as well. So you can spend a whole day just doing Shakespeare stuff and enjoying all of the stuff. Like Shakespeare bought New Place later on in his life, and you get to learn about that. So I would suggest get that, come see us, and then spend a day in Stratford, going to Anne Hathaway's cottage, New Place, and enjoy Stratford. It's one of my favourite towns.
It's good just going to enjoy and explore the scenery, let alone going into the places as well. And then because you got there's a graveyard to visit as well, and the wonderful
you
walks down the river.
You can go see Shakespeare's grave, and you can walk through the graveyard. They've got a lovely plaque out now for Judith and Hamnet Hamlet, Shakespeare's Children, and now that's in the garden as well. And just, yeah, it's just great. I just love Stratford.
It is amazing. So well worth a little visit and down the road from us as well. Well, you have a great time with all those projects. Keep us posted on anything else that is going on. We look forward to maybe more magic or some of the other random shows and the like that you get involved
there's a
with.
Christmas Carol coming up in Christmas. I'm sure we'll talk about it.
No doubt. I look forward to hearing or seeing that in some way or form too.
Indeed.
Chris Commander, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you soon.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Jason. Bye.
There's an exciting autumn season ahead at the Stafford Gatehouse. Keith Harrison joins me to tell me exactly what's going on. Hello, sir.
Hello, young man. How are you?
I'm all right. I hope the world is treating you well.
Always good. Yeah, it's always sunny in Stafford, no matter what happens.
It's actually, Stafford does have its own weird climate. I know that from when I was in a house there whilst mine was being refurbished. It's a strange old place, but there you go. But it's good fun, and it's got a great theatre, as many of the cities in our area have. So what's going on then with the likes of what you're putting on your stage?
Well, we're just coming into now our busiest time of the year, really, Jace. As a lot of theatres will tell you that the autumn season coming into Christmas is the busiest time of the year. Mm-hmm. And we've had a quietish August because we've done a lot of maintenance work and a lot of new things going on around the theatre. And just let me tell you about a couple of these before we start. Mm. So one of the things that we're doing is we're doing new welcome packages. All right. So every time you buy a ticket now, you'll get prompted to say, do you want to buy one of our welcome packages? And they're a good deal, but they are sort of thing whereby often when you come to the theatre, it's packed at the bar, everybody comes at the same time, and this will sort of take you away from that. Make sure you've got a guaranteed seat in a quieter area in the theatre, and with somebody who'll run to the bar for you, your own host, and have some drinks and nibbles all ready for you. So that's a new thing that we're doing. Mm-hmm. We're also just about to start something which, again, I think has been done very successfully at other theatres, particularly the Grand down in Wolverhampton, where you can name a seat at the Gatehouse. Mm-hmm. So whereby if you've just in memory of your favourite artist, or a friend or a loved one, or somebody you've just spent many happy hours with at the Gatehouse, you can get a plaque on one of the seats at the Gatehouse and name that plaque forever to keep it for the next 10 years.
Or if it's a seat that you always want to have when you come and see a show, put your name on it.
Yeah, and loads of people do that. Christmas coming up, and a lot of people are already saying that it's just a nice touch because we have a lot of regular customers coming through the doors at the Gatehouse, and this would be a nice touch for somebody to have their own sort of name on the seat. And again, we're going to put details of that on our website. But of course, all this is side talk to the really big news, which is what we've got coming up on stage.
Yeah, because it's a very busy time, including some fantastic comedians and some other one-night shows.
So on September the 6th, we've got a guy called Pete Furman, who you might not know the name, but you definitely know his face. He's been on things like The John Bishop Show. He's been on Sarah Millican. He's been on loads of TV shows. And he's in this great new show called Good Omens with Michael Sheen and David Tennant on Amazon. It's just come out now for the second season. So he's big. He's probably, they call him the poster boy for comedy magic in the UK. And he is brilliant. If you look on our Facebook page or look on Twitter, whatever it's called this week, you'll see some of his tricks that he does, and he is absolutely incredible. He's absolutely brilliant. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm not really a one for magicians, but somebody who can do this kind of thing. He's very sharp and very funny, but he does magic tricks as well. So like a modern day Tommy Cooper, Jason, somebody you and I would remember well.
I don't know. Neither of us are old enough to remember Tommy Cooper. We'll pretend. But no, amazing magic from him, amazing comedy from him. If Pete can do a fraction of as funny as that fella, you've got a good act, and he's as good as you've been telling me.
Yeah. Oh, we've also got some great music lined up on September the 8th. We've only got a few tickets left for this, but this is a band that I know you're old enough to remember, Shawaddy Waddy.
Right? I've introduced Shawaddy Waddy.
There you go, Shawaddy Waddy.
So yeah, they're a jolly good band, well worth seeing.
And do you know what? This is going to make you feel old, because it definitely makes me feel old. It's their 50th anniversary concert tour.
Well, the fact they started out when I was 1 just means that I enjoyed them during the peak of their career 10 or 15 years later. But they've done amazing things over the years, and they are truly awesome live. Well worth getting along to see.
Yeah, all the hits. So that's going to be that. We've only got a few tickets left for that, but that's going to be amazing. Then we've got Carrie Dupree on the following day, on September the 9th.
Kerry Dupree.
Yes. Am I saying it wrong?
Yeah, it's Kerry Dupree.
Kerry Dupree. Kerry Dupree. I've been telling people Kerry Dupree. I thought because she's a sort of like, you know, a female impersonator, that it was something more to it than that. But Kerry Dupree, Back to the Rhinestone. Fantastic. That's in the Met Studio on September the 9th. But also that night, it's going to be a big night for us, because we've got upstairs in the main room, Someone Like You, the Adele story, the Adele songbook. So all the Adele songs, and this girl, Katie, she has got a fantastic voice. She is, you know, a brilliant singer in her own right. And she's going to be performing as Adele with all the classic Adele hits that, you know, you come to expect. We're expecting to sell quite a lot of white wine and Prosecco on that night.
And that's just to you, and you're going to be in the second row.
Yeah. And then following on from that, going completely to the other end of the spectrum, we've got a lovely children's show on September the 11th and 12th in the daytime. So the Monday and the Tuesday the following week, Tales from Acorn Wood. And it's one of these things done with puppets, and it's absolutely beautiful. If you've got a preschool child, this will melt your heart. And just watching your children's reactions to it will be amazing. So that's a great show, Tales from Acorn Wood. And then later that week, we got another comedian. We've only got a few left for this as well, which is what I love to say, because it says that they're all good shows. Simon Brodkin, who you might not recognize the name straight off, but do you remember when Lee Nelson, the prankster Lee Nelson? He's the guy.
He was the man behind all of that.
He did all that, and he gave Sepp Blatter he threw all the money at Sepp Blatter at the FIFA press conference.
Yep.
And he gave Theresa May a P45 at a
Conservative Party conference.
I mean, the guts this guy's got to just go up and do things like that is incredible. And this is his own sort of stand-up show. So he said that what happened was he got tired of playing this character. And he said, I was really playing the character to hide away from myself, really. And so he's sort of come out of character now. This is him doing his own stand-up and talking about his life and things. And it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
so
I've seen him live again, and he's another brilliant. He's only part of a comedy night that was on in Brummel a few years back. Pre-pandemic, I think it was that long ago.
Yeah.
But he was brilliant at that, so he's going to be well worth grabbing one of those last few tickets.
Sharp as a tack, he really is.
Absolutely.
We've got another one-man show, Shakespeare's Fool, which is a true story, a one-man show about a guy who was a big friend of Shakespeare's back in the day, and helped set up the Globe Theatre, but then he fell out with the Bard, and it all went downhill from there. So that's, it's an interesting, true historical tale, which is going on. One thing that I should tell you about, which is starts next week as well, on September the 7th. So these are daytime classic film afternoons. So we pick out a classic film, we run them downstairs in the Met Studio on the big screen. But we've got James Dean, Rebel Without a Cause, we've got Meet Me in St. Louis, we've got Breakfast at Tiffany's, all coming up once a week on a Thursday afternoon. But the beauty of these you get a coffee or a cup of tea and a cake and a film, £6.
Sounds good value.
And if there's two of you, 2 for £10. So these are really, really popular shows. We've got to say we're helped in this by the Tesco Community Fund, which is a big support for us. And they're also dementia-friendly screenings. So a lot of the people tend to be elderly, but it's very accessible. And it's a great way for people to come out, make new friends, have a nice cup of tea, a lovely cake, and see a great film as well. So they're on Thursday afternoons, the classic film afternoons, very, very popular.
And you got loads more one-night shows and like. I mean, you got James Reese, his comedy show Spilt Milk. Fiona Allen's along on the run. That's going to be an
Fiona Allen. Remember Smack the Pony, Channel 4? That was the big show back in the day.
Absolutely.
Fiona was been big on that. Yeah.
Room on One's Own. Tell us a bit about that.
Room of One's Own is it's a one-lady show. It's a play. By Virginia Woolf, actually. It goes back to Virginia Woolf's days. And it's all about what young ladies back in the day needed to be successful. So it was a career or it was a man, and definitely a room of one's own. So it's quite, Virginia Woolf, it's quite a feminist take on things. And that's going to be a fascinating play as well. I'm really looking forward to that. And as you say, Robert Temple, the hypnotist, Red Raw. Now then, this guy is special. He can get people to do anything. And a bit like Pete Furman, he's very, very funny with it. So it's not just a hypnotist show. He's almost a comedian as well. And finally, let me segue into this, because this is one of my favourite comedians we've got coming up next month, Carl Hutchinson. Watch till the end. Carl is, you might have seen him, he's been on the TV, he's got his own specials and things like that on Dave. He's a Geordie lad, a big friend of Chris Ramsey, and he's just so likable and he's just so funny. Again, this is selling quite quick, but he's been on at the Gatehouse before, and he is, a big, big draw for us. Carl Hutchinson on September the 22nd. Running through the rest, we've got the complete works of William Shakespeare.
Now, that is abridged.
Yes, abridged. Not all of them in one night, but it's again one of these comedy things, and they spin through it, and the way they put them all together is just fantastic. It really is clever and good, and most of all, hilarious. So again, it's done with some modern settings and modern takes and modern references, but it's a really, really good show. As is, just to find a couple, the Elton John show. Well, what can you say about that? I mean, the Elton John show, running through Elton John's hits, that's on September 27th. And again, the costumes that are on that's a really top quality show. So, and then finally, just something slightly different, Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever done DNA testing? Have you ever sort of done any genealogy and found out about your family history?
My DNA remains untested so far.
But a lot of people are doing that these days, aren't they? They're checking the DNA and, finding out about, the heritage and all the rest of. We've got Professor Turi King. Now, she's one of the top professors in the country. She was involved in identifying Richard. You know when they found Richard III?
Richard III, yep.
In the car park in Leicester. She was part of the team that identified him. They went through all the DNA of all the royals down the years, and she found out that, confirmed that this was Richard III. And again, she's got an amazing story. So she's given a talk. So if you're interested in your family history, genealogy, DNA, that's a great talk on October the 2nd, 7:30 p.m. Professor Turi King. And I just think that's going to be fascinating.
It's going to be amazing. Now, we've landed in October. I think we'll come back during the month of September and find out more about the final run up towards Christmas. But there's a lot going on, and it's a busy venue there. And I know if people belong to Stafford Gatehouse to enjoy one show, they will be back for more, because they'll spot what's going on. gatehousetheatre.co.uk. I'll let you do the phone number for the box office.
01785 619 080.
And you can get your tickets for that list of shows and many more. One quick mention, though, for Panto. Tell us what you got going on this year.
Well, I can't wait for this. Beauty and the Beast. You can see the poster behind me, actually.
I thought you were going to say you were the Beast for a minute then.
I'm definitely not Beauty. And but speaking of which, we got Mark Rhodes in it, Wolverhampton's finest, Mark Rhodes of Sam and Mark fame, and he's a lovely, lovely guy. And the only annoying thing about him is he hasn't aged a bit.
That is scary, isn't it?
He's been on TV now for about 20 years, and he looks exactly the same as he did when he was on Pop Idol or whatever it was, with Sam and Mark. And then he's done CBeebies, he's done Match of the Day, he's done everything.
Crackerjack.
He's a great guy. Crackerjack. He did do Crackerjack. Yes, yeah, Friday at 5:00. And it was amazing. So we're looking forward to having Mark, Beauty and the Beast in December, and that's going to be a fantastic thing for us, because the pantomime is the highlight of the year. And it's crazy that here we are, August, but I tell you what, we are already well in the way for planning for it. It's a massive thing.
Absolutely, it has to be done. That's the 8th through to the 31st of December. Everyone finishes at the end of the year on that, but a great time will be had. Keith, always good to speak to you. Thank you for joining us.
You
and
too,
I look forward to
Jason.
catching up with you in a few weeks.
Cheers.
$14.48 in Wolverhampton is on its way once more, which means 14 world premiere plays in 48 hours in the Arena Theatre. The 22nd and 23rd of September are the dates, but we need to know more details first. With what he can tell us, because it is all somewhat not written yet. Well, Krista, how you doing, mate? You okay?
I'm not bad at all. I'm not bad. How are you?
I'm all right, and looking forward to the festival. And hopefully, I'll actually be able to get along myself this year. It's been a mad few years, and I need some 1448 action.
Everybody needs a bit of 1448 in their life, Jason.
What do we know so far, then?
Oh, what do we know so far? We know that there will be 14 brand new plays that will be written, produced, and staged over those 2 days. So, 7 plays each day. So if you come on the Friday, you'll see 7 plays at 7 o'clock or 9:30. We've brought the timings forward slightly to make it kinder, so you don't have to come for a 10:30 show anymore. There's now a 9:30 late show. And then there'll be a different 7 plays that have been written and produced and staged in just 24 hours for that Saturday 7 o'clock and 9:30 performance. So yeah, lots of fun stuff. We can guarantee that there'll be some drama and maybe some daft stuff as well, but it'll be entertaining, no matter what you go and see, really.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to get. I mean, that's part of the joy of it, and having seen some amazing plays. And the scary bit is they get performed that twice, and then that's it. That is their time on this planet in most cases, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's great for the writers. It means that they can make something that they've not sweated buckets over months and years. That's been written in just 10 hours overnight for them. They can see that then produced on the stage instantly, and then it's kind of it's there and it's gone. And that's, I think, the beauty of like live performance compared to especially like digital streaming these days. Everything's available all the time, whereas with this, it's there. If you're not there, you miss it, and you miss that moment. And there are so many incredible moments that happen at this festival. Like we say, not all theatre should be made this way. This is not what we're saying. We don't encourage everyone to try and produce performances in this kind of timescale. But genuinely, some best theatre that I've ever seen has been generated through this process, when it just gels right with the cast, with the live bands, with the music. Everything comes together, and absolute magic can happen in that lovely little black box space that the arena has. It's just, yeah, you can't beat it.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that it's a sort of intimate venue where actually you feel you're part of the show. But this is just a joy of a theatre show. And having been along during the day, and if I can, I'm going to try and be around all day again on the Friday to see the magic happen, because it is just phenomenal the way it comes together. And everything from the rehearsals through to a little bit of rewrites every once in a while. And yeah, seeing how the cast are going to work out, because you're never entirely sure who your cast are going to be, other than from a pool of people when you start writing that first play following the draw on Thursday night.
That's right. Yeah. So we literally pull a theme out of the hat on the Thursday night. The writers go away, they write their plays. Each write a 10-minute play, so there's 7 created. And then first thing on that Friday morning, the directors just get a script at random in an envelope, and they don't know what they've got. And then an hour later, they're pulling names out of a bucket, and we cast everything completely gender blind. It just completely mixes up who might be cast in what role, and yeah, then that is your company for the day. Then and then they've just got 10 hours together until they're on the stage, scripts down, and everything is produced as professionally as it can be within that time frame.
With sets, scenery, lights, all the sound worked out. The band written a score for it, and it is just crazy the pace at which this all goes.
It's the beauty of just trusting people, though. I think so often in life, I think you're kind of expected to do so many different things, and here people can just concentrate on one thing. This is my groove for the day. Particularly in the case of the band, this is my groove for the day, and I'm gonna sit in this groove, and that's just gonna carry me through the day, and everyone else is going to be there to support me, and it's such a beautiful supportive atmosphere, and that's the audience are a big part of that, coming along, supporting their local artists, supporting stuff that is relevant to them, that is current for them. We just, it's such a beautiful community of people that come together to make this stuff happen. And there's always new people coming in as well, which is just great for us. Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. And I think as well, the fact there's been visitors from the home of 1448 in Seattle in the past as well. And that sort of brings the magic when it's international. There's people who come over from the Leicester 1448 festival and vice versa. And I think, it's about collaboration. I think that's the nicest thing about it, apart from the beer.
Yeah. And we were, a few of our artists were really generous with their time start of last year, raised a bit of funding through a marathon, a half marathon that they ran, which put a bit of money in our bank accounts, which we then invested in. We ran a little scheme where an artist applied, they got some funding, and it paid for a plane ticket for them to go off to Seattle. So it was a West Midlands-based artist who went off to Seattle this summer to take part in one of the 1448 festivals over there. So they'll be bringing all that back with them as well. And, yeah, just great stuff.
Well, we look forward to the event 22nd and 23rd of September. It's a Friday and a Saturday. 7 o'clock and 9:30 are those performances of 7 brand new plays each night, twice. Tickets, how does that work this year?
Yeah, you can book everything online. It's a good question. Do you know what?
arena.wlv.ac.uk.
Yeah, that's the website. I mean, I believe. Oh yeah, there's a scale of tickets available. So there's all kinds of different costs. So you don't have to break the bank to come and see this stuff either.
Okay, do that. You can give the box office a call on 01902 321 321. Have a natter with them and work it out. Or go along to the 1448 Facebook page where you'll be able to see all of what's happening, some development during the day, and become part of that creative process just from the comfort of your own mobile phone, which you're probably reading whilst on the toilet somewhere. So that's worth checking out. Bob, always good to speak to you. Keep up the good work with the team, and we look forward to an amazing 1448 festival in Wolverhampton this September.
Lovely, Jason. Look forward to seeing you there.
It's more than 22 years since the passing of Douglas Adams, yet his ideas, thoughts, and amazing stories are still in the minds of many. Kevin Jon Davies has put a book together, 42, The Wildly Improbable Ideas of Douglas Adams, and he's here now to tell me more about it. Hello, sir.
Hello, Jason. It's nice to meet you.
Well, good to meet you too. And in a time when we need more of the magical world and comedy of Douglas Adams, sadly, there is little more out there that we haven't already heard already. But these improbable ideas are going to spark a few memories and maybe be new to a few people.
I had a chat on Radio Cambridgeshire on Monday with Rory McGrath took part, comedian and actor. He knew Douglas Adams, and he seems to have enjoyed it. He said it brought back so many memories, especially the photographs of young Douglas as he remembers him when they were all together at university, honing their comedy talents, doing their little smokers and various other shows that they put on as part of Footlights and things like that. So, yeah, it brought back memories for him. I think it will appeal to a lot of people who just wish we'd had more from Douglas Adams. I mean, he died at 49. It was just a crying shame. We were robbed of the later age Douglas, who might have had all sorts of insights to impart,
Absolutely. And particularly in the world of technology, he loved his tech. And the things that we've heard about with the Salmon of Doubt and the other visitations to things that haven't made it out into the world in Douglas's finely honed form. It is just such a disappointment. We missed out on so many things, but we have to think about what we do have, whether it be some of the skits from the Burkiss Way, all the way through Hitchhiker's Guide and the Dirk Gently Sadistic Detective Agency, and the new takes we've seen on some of these works as inspiration over the last couple of decades. It is a very special body of writing. And how have you approached it? What do we find in this book of yours?
Well, the family, when sadly, I mean, Douglas is, as I say, he passed away in 2001. His widow, she also died about 10 years later. And eventually the home the beautiful home in Islington was sold. All his papers, the family didn't know what to do with it all. And they decided to do, as many people have done, former dons, former students of the various colleges in Cambridge, and I'm guessing at other unis as well. But St John's College, Cambridge, where Douglas studied, have a beautiful 500-year-old library. And his works have all been lodged there in their care. They're still much, very much the property of the family and the estate of Douglas. So they control who can see it and everything. You have to get written permission to access it. But the publishers, Unbound, they approached me and they said, we've been recommended to talk to you. You've been in the archive before and you knew Douglas. Would you consider this project? And I said, absolutely. And it's funny, in 2016, I'd had a look in the archive for Dirt Mags, the radio producer, who's a friend of mine, and he'd asked me to go and look for any snippets, any tidbits of Hitchhiker that still hadn't been published. I mean, there have been a few books that have covered this subject in the past, and some of them have printed pieces that hadn't previously been seen. As you mentioned, there was The Salmon of Doubt, which had quite a few articles and things by Douglas. So it was a chance to look at the last snippets, and I thought at the time in 2016, hey, there's a book in this, but I never dreamt it would be me. But they asked me to do it, and we had a bit of a false start because there were lots of COVID restrictions still in place in 2021. The Kickstarter went enormous immediately, and Douglas's name still sells, and it made its target on the first day, which was lovely to see. So the project was, assured right from the off. But then we had a long delay because we couldn't get into the archive. Only live-in students were allowed at that time. That restriction was lifted. I then unfortunately got ill for a while. So last year I finally got stuck in properly, and it's been a burst of activity all the way through last year to get the book done to meet the deadlines that they were now imposing upon us. And you know what Douglas was like with deadlines, terrible.
Absolutely.
So I think I broke the deadline, unfortunately, by being ill again. So, but the publishers employed a very good copy editor to help me. I'd never laid out a book before. I'm mainly a documentary filmmaker these days. I started life as an animator, and I worked on the TV series of Hitchhiker all those years ago. But researching for a documentary and researching for a book, very similar sort of set of circumstances. Going to the archive was a treat. I'm very happy in archives. I was a librarian. My mum was a librarian. I was a librarian. I was only a Saturday boy while I was at college, But I'm very happy in that environment. And so the research part of the job is the real joy of seeing Douglas's writing, his terrible handwriting and his appalling typing, and trying to make sense of it all. The curators at the special collections in St John's Library had done a wonderful job of creating, you can access it yourself actually, an online sort of catalogue of what's there, but that doesn't tell you what's on every page. It just gives you the broad brackets of what to expect. And so the only way to do it was to slog through every scrap of paper, and there were 67 boxes to choose from. I think I must have seen a good 85% of the archive by now. I photographed a lot of it on my iPhone because I didn't have time to read it during my 17 visits last year to the Cambridge archive. I took it home, absorbed it, read it, catalogued it, put it into different categories, of what might work in the book. And so now we've got the best of everything. It covers his whole life from his school days to his sadly untimely demise. So I hope it'll appeal to a lot of people. It might appeal to people that would just want to know how writers think and how this particular writer thinks or thought, because it gives you an insight into the agonies of trying to write.
Yeah, and I mean, writing is something which is a hugely creative process, but that writer's block, having the environment, having the right mindset to inhabit the world of the characters you're looking for, particularly when the worlds created by Douglas were nothing like any other.
Well, I mean, he might argue with that, because I think he used to say that he was a huge fan of people like P.G. Wodehouse. He did like some science fiction. He'd read some Asimov, which he didn't like much, but he liked the ideas, but he didn't like the style of writing. He did like Kurt Vonnegut, and I think Robert Sheckley and a few others. But he said, I never set out to be a science fiction writer. I thought of myself as a satirist. So I think that's really why Hitchhiker appeals to so many people across the board, because science fiction fans think it's great because it's sending up their genre and they enjoy that aspect. But those who don't like robots and spaceships, they like it because it seems to be sending up the things they don't like, which is science fiction. So it appealed on two levels, to different audiences. But he went straight into bestsellerdom, and he never set out to be a novelist. He wanted to be a scriptwriter. He wanted to be Monty Python. He wanted to be John Cleese and that sort of thing. He wanted to write comedy and perform it, but he was a terrible performer. Rory McGrath the other day was saying, and various others of Douglas's friends have said it before, he couldn't help telegraph a joke. If they were doing a sketch on stage, he'd start laughing before he said the funny line. So he was awful in that regard, but everybody loved him. He was a big, lovable giant of a man, very ungainly, very awkward and clumsy, and but very generous. He was generous with his time. I mean, I wasn't part of his inner circle. I wasn't a best mate or anything. I worked with him a lot of times. I knew him on and off for 20 years. And we were all devastated when he died, and it was tragic. He'd gone off to California. He lived in California for the last 2 years of his life, trying to get the movie made. Well, as we know, the movie came along some years later, but he wasn't around to see it, sadly. So, that was a big disappointment in his life, not getting the movie done.
Still, though, we have this work. We have this book exploring the bits we didn't know, which I think is just another joy and a pleasure, and a chance to introduce his ideas to a whole new audience once more.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what people make of it. I mean, I'm on a couple of Facebook groups for Hitchhiker fans, and I've always been very kindly, they made me an honorary member of ZZ9 Plural Z Alpha, which is the official Hitchhikers Appreciation Society. They have a Facebook page, if you want to look it up, zz9.org, and also Galactic Hitchhikers, which is a big American-run one with a huge audience. And it's plain to me that there's a big international audience for Douglas's work, because he was republished in so many languages. He was amazingly, considering how literate it is and how very, very English it seems, it was translated into an enormous amount of languages. And there are people who collect all the different books with all the bizarre different covers and things. So it appeals across the board, I hope. And it's nice to see when on the fan groups I see someone comes along and says, I've just watched the film 14 times and I love Hitchhiker. And then you get all the old diehards going, oh, no, we don't like the film. It's like, oh, every version's different. And whatever version you come across first, hopefully it will lead you on to try out some of the other versions.
Yeah, and the fact that every version is different, whether it's the LP or the actual radio skits, or how it all came into one universe, is held together by a couple of towels and a Pangalactic gargle blaster, is just completely mad, isn't it?
Well, it's very odd because it began on radio. So if you want the pure original Hitchhikers, you should try and get the BBC radio series, of which there are 5 based on Douglas's books. And the later ones are based on his books. The first 2 series he wrote straight ahead as the original radio series, the first 2. The other 3 were made by Dirt Mags based on his later books. And there was even a 6th book written as an official continuation by Owen Colfer. If you know that, he wrote for young adults. He does the Artemis Fowl series, amongst other things. And he was asked to do it because Douglas's daughter was a fan, I believe. And he was a lovely fella, but he tried a bit too hard. It didn't always appeal to other people. I think Douglas had such a particular, special way of writing that the fans can detect if it's the real thing or not, And after he did the radio show, he was asked to novelize the first series. And that's when Douglas's true voice came out. The radio series is a product of his writing. Jeffrey Perkins and Simon Brett before him as producers. They worked on the material. John Lloyd helped Douglas write the episodes 5 and 6 of the first series. So it's a mixture of voices and literary voices with all the different actors. When you read the novels, you've got pure Douglas. And that's what this book, 42, The Wildly Improbable Ideas of Douglas Adams, hopefully brings you more of that true voice from his school days to the very end. And you can see him thrashing out all these famous bits of writing and some less famous. We found some real exclusives of things we didn't know he'd done. There's a sketch for Pete Townsend of The Who.
Right.
That was a big one on me. And he worked on children's stuff like, do you remember the Paul McCartney cartoon, Rupert and the Frog Song?
Yeah, We All Stand Together.
We all stand together, yeah. It began with Paul McCartney's company asking Douglas and John Lloyd, and I believe Terry Jones as well, to have a little stab at how they might approach a Rupert cartoon. And so we've got a snippet of that. We've got some stuff from Dr. Snuggles, if anybody remembers that 80s cartoon, or late 70s, early 80s cartoon. There's a little snippet of that. He wrote all sorts of things. Because he got famous, he got asked to do other things. But we've also got the things he did before he was famous. When he was at Cambridge University with some quite famous people that were his friends at that time, Clive Anderson and Rory McGrath and John Lloyd and people like that, who did comedy shows with him. They were kind of honing their skills, following in the footsteps of people like the Pythons and way back when, Beyond the Fringe before that. So, you know, Douglas, when he went to Cambridge, I mean, he used to kid people. He used to say, he made up a lot of stories as well about... usually to get a laugh, you know, there was nothing sort of, you know, wicked about it. He was just trying to make people entertained. But he said, oh, I never got any proper essays and work done at Cambridge. I was too busy on footlights, you know, and doing Amdram and things like that. And it's not true. We found some of his actual academic work as well in the archive. And it's amazing that it all exists, because he was quite a chaotic bloke. So I can only assume that the series of different PAs that he had, his secretaries, probably kept it all in order for him. I can't imagine he did it all, you know, but the fact that he's kept it means, of course, you know, he worked at a time when there was still hard copy.
Yeah.
It wasn't all on computer. All his earliest work, the first 4 books, were written on typewriters or in longhand. And so we've got some of his handwritten notebooks, and we've got typed pages with all the crossings out and all those bits in the margin. And so hopefully when you see this book, it'll be like it felt for me, you know, looking over my shoulder as I open up the next box file and find the next gem, you know, that was amongst all the paperwork.
It's magic which needs to be shared. You're doing that with 42, the wildly improbable ideas of Douglas Adams. Kevin Jon Davies, thank you for that. Thank you for the work. And we look forward to picking this up. And of course, it'll be available via all your usual intergalactic bookstores.
Officially, it's the UK publication date is the 24th of August. And it's about a month later in America.
So that is a joy for fans of Douglas and those who don't realise they're going to be fans of Douglas to pick up and learn something of his life. Wonderful speaking to you, Kevin. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for asking me. I look forward to hearing the programme.
It seems we're getting a little bit nostalgic for the noughties. There are some amazing times gone by. Somebody who not only is at the forefront of lots of things now, but was absolutely at top of his game then is Judge Jules, who joins me now. Hello, sir.
Hello, how are we?
I'm good. I hope we find you well. And so loving some of the reminiscing here, because apparently the noughties has been named the best decade for socialising and partying in the UK.
Indeed. Well, a new generational study was commissioned by Schweppes, and they found that the noughties were the preferred decade for socialising amongst 1 in 2 Brits, so a really high percentage. And interestingly as well, the Schweppes study found that that Gen Z, who didn't really live through much of the noughties, also considered that decade to be the best decade for socialising and the one they'd most like to go back to.
It's not too far to travel in time. We know we still had phones, although they were flip phones rather than the cool computers we carry around these days, and started to appear towards the end of the decade. But it's not a bad time. I mean, do you have any highlights of the noughties which really make it stand out for you?
Well, yes, I guess for me, we're really taking a foothold in Ibiza, going there weekly for the entire decade. So that would be somewhere between 150 and 200 shows in Ibiza throughout that period. Setting off my night Judgment Sundays, which started in June 2000, but also the kind of festival culture that emerged during that time is really significant, because in the 90s, I do loads of clubs, do a few big events, but I just didn't do any festivals at all. And then fast forward to the noughties, and Britain just gets festival fever, which objectively has always seemed, on the one hand, al fresco kind of clubbing and raving and partying is fantastic. On the other hand, we have really crap weather compared to just about anybody, and we, by rights, it should be, you know, the Italians, the Portuguese, the Greek, or the Spanish that enjoy festivals most, but it's not. It's us, us crazy Brits.
It sort of went from warehouses to outdoors, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. There was a interestingly, when I first started, there were a lot of illegal events, and it was had those same promoters putting on the events tried to get licenses to do something a bit different, they would have been knocked back. There just weren't the licenses available. Like whether it's because there wasn't the category of license available, or whether it's because the people in the licensing authorities were more crusty and more kind of old-fashioned. But fast forward to now, and it's actually a lot easier to get the licenses to do these sort of things. Interestingly, it was also the beginning of a period when, maybe I was going to say that in the noughties, the genesis of people going out a bit earlier began, but that's certainly now people go out a lot, don't go out to as late as they did during that period. I mean, which as a more senior statesman, DJ, I've got to say I'm quite pleased about.
But there was a lot of fun to be had, and it was the birth of the likes of YouTube. We had MySpace. The internet was there, although on dial-up it was exceptionally slow. But the web pages were a lot simpler. I meant it could load in a day or two. But people started file sharing as well towards the end of the decade, and I think all these things were sort of changes that happened in our lifetimes, which now are just so normal for everybody out there.
Yeah, I think the revolution. People talk about the internet as being the greatest revolution of the century or the rolling century, but I think the reality is that the greatest revolution was high-speed internet, because dial-up didn't really allow for much, whereas high-speed broadband is something totally different. You've got access to everything. You've got access to all information you require of any description, and you've got access to all arts and culture of any description. And in many ways, because the noughties was the last decade where that wasn't the case, you had internet, but it was too slow to be usable in many respects. You still had that vibe where people went out for the right reasons. It was word of mouth, it was old school flyers, it was events that were only for the initiated, as opposed to now where you can basically promote anything to anybody very fast.
Yeah.
Again, I don't really want to, I'm not talking to you today with the aim of totally knocking what's gone on now. It's more a case, if I've got one message stemming from the fact that Schweppes have conducted this survey and they found this really quite remarkable fact, because I might have thought it would have been the 90s that they found to be the most popular decade, but they haven't. But it's more to try and encourage people to relive the vibe that the 90s encapsulated, because of course we've just come out of COVID. COVID's a couple of years ago, but I still think some people are still a little bit, have got the psychological shackles on post-COVID still. And of course, we've got the cost of living crisis, which recent evidence suggests we're beginning to see the way, the downhill slope, if I'm using my metaphors correctly, away from that. So I think it's just go out, have a great time and share it with your friends and just enjoy the music and the culture and the company for what it is. If I was to say, don't go on social media, don't film every 5 minutes, I'd be ignored. So I don't want to sound like somebody, I don't know, King Canute sitting in trying to hold the waves back. It is what it is. But hopefully I'm, if you like, a disciple of the way the noughties used to be and the vibe that it encapsulated.
Well, yeah, I mean, great times. I mean, it's amazing the stuff. I mean, Big Brother, that was still big in the noughties. You got the Hannah Montana, the OC, all these things where people go back and relive these shows. And whilst Friends came to an end in the noughties, you're looking at things which were in some ways opinions of their times. Yet there was fun stuff which happened as well. I mean, people doing things like customizing their mouse cursors was fun. Playing Snake on their Nokia phone. It's amazing what made us happy back then.
I think you've done some very good homework into some interesting, quirky facets of noughties life that you can only do now because we've got high-speed internet, which is not a facet of noughties life. Did I ever decorate my mouse? I don't think I did, but I certainly know plenty of people who have that with the novelty mouse. I think that's a really good one. I've been thinking, obviously knowing that I was doing this interview today, I've been thinking about what represented the 90s, and that's the most quirky thought that I didn't get to.
Well, they were amazing times, and Schweppes, obviously a brand which has been around for decades, sharing amazing flavors. And some things that are right, and where people have the right taste, these things don't change.
I'd like to think that taste is timeless, whereas fashion is transitory.
Where can we see more on this survey that Schweppes have done?
Via the Schweppes website, it's available.
Nip along there, check out what's going on, and maybe bop around to a bit of your Judge Jules classic CD of some Ibiza anthems from 2004, something like that.
Yeah.
Judge Jules, Jules for his mates. Thank you for joining us and have good fun.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Cheers.
That's all for this week. Thank you so much for joining me back with episode 741 next week. I'll see you then. Ta-ra for now.
Goodbye from the milk bar. 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 Yeah. Goodbye from the milk bar.